This video, the middle-aged nerds discuss spoilers from books they read decades ago. Do you really need a spoiler alert? Do you really?
Hi, I'm Glenn the Geeky Hippie.
Hi, I'm Pieter, the guest for this time. Again.
And I'm Bill, also known as Matt Stagger, and welcome to Non-Terrestrial Half-Life, where we take books we read in the first half of our life, check them out now, see if they hold up to the test of time or not. This time, I happen to be a first-time reader of this book. As long as our guest and our other host has read the book, that's completely okay. So, and we are currently reading Glenn.
Part 1 of Two Green Angel Tower by Tad Williams. This is the first half of the third book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy. Unfortunately, when it was published in paperback, it had to be split into 2 editions. And it's a good reason because it's 550,000 words.
It's thick.
It's longer than the first 2 books in the trilogy combined. So we decided we're going to do like they did with the paperback and we're going to split it. So we read through chapter 26, A Gift for the Queen, I believe is the name of the chapter.
Yep.
That's where we cut off. Well, guys, what'd you think of this one? Getting better?
Oh, I mean, it's always been good. This one, the pace has picked up a bit in spots where it's moving along pretty quickly. I wonder how Simon does anything because he seems to be asleep a lot. He's on the dream road a lot. So, at least the first half of this book. But yeah, we get to some particular battle that is so well written and just fun in the fake war kind of way.
Pieter, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, it is a very good continuation, and things start to pick up in the story. Although I must confess that this time Simon is becoming a bit of a Boy Scout. He was the moon golf, basically scoundrel all over the castle and, traveling the world, doing stuff. Whether he liked it or not, that was another one. But slowly but steadily, he became, in this book, a bit of a Boy Scout.
He's growing up a lot. He's definitely growing up a lot. And
absolutely.
It's one of the beautiful things about how well written this trilogy is you see his growth and his art just progress so wonderfully. And yeah, I really love this book. It doesn't have. I'm not normally one to complain about pacing, but I can understand people who would complain about the first 2 books on pacing because there are some long, drawn-out, slow stretches in those 2 books. This book, we're not getting it as much so far. It's been a while since I read it, so I don't remember the second half. But yeah, it is. Everything is picking up a lot quicker, and we're seeing some really interesting character development from everybody, I think.
I get Simon being a bit of a Boy Scout at the moment. He's just received knighthood, and he's trying to figure out how to be a knight. So, of course, he's going to try and do, the most responsible, morally correct choice every time now that he has a title and there are eyes on him from all over the kingdom. I can see why he is sort of turning into a bit of a Boy Scout at this point. I have a feeling by the end of the book, we might see a little bit more of his breakout, starting to realize, what he can do, what he should do, may not always be the same thing.
I think it makes a lot of sense that he's acting with the Boy Scout, because who has he got as his role model right now? He's got Circumambus, who very much a Boy Scout. He was the perfect knight.
Are we already allowed to talk spoilers ahead, or do you want to first tell the story as is? Because you start about talking about Chimeras, and that is, of course,
we can dive into spoilers if you've got some spoiler. This is a full spoiler show. Yeah. So if you've got something you wanted to bring up,
yeah, feel free.
Yeah. No, I have a few remarks actually in that sense. The story in itself is, like I said, picking up, but I'm not entirely agree with you that the pacing was a bit slow in the other ones. I still think the book is a page of the series, actually, I must say, is a page turner. I keep reading, and I noticed now I'm sort of this is now, well, for better or worse, book 3, part 1, and I notice I start reading more and more. I'm already in part 2 actually for the next round, so that I notice my pace is quickening, and I'm unwilling to stop reading. Actually, it's
I
time to
had
go
to
to bed.
force
Yeah,
myself to
yeah,
stop.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
me too.
Both times, because I read this first half twice now in the past week, and I had to stop. I'm like, no, 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 you're not continuing. Go read something else, Glenn.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I did the other night. Is I read some more Mary Beard's Pompeii for nonfiction books. I love her stuff.
Yeah.
If you like Roman history, pick up some Mary Beard. She's great.
Okay.
Um,
What also
but
is,
yeah, it was a nice little break.
yeah, and what I also noticed is that there are a few, well, I would almost say warnings, which are, well, basically it was when was the third book written? Was that still the late 80s or was that early 90s?
I think it was the 90s. I
Um,
want to say it came out in 91 or 92, but I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
something like that. Yeah, that's roughly when the Dutch version also came out. So I'm not entirely sure whether the English version also came out then. But there are a lot of, well, warnings, if you will, in the story, which are very recognizable even in this day and age, which is, well, it is basically 30 years old, so that's impressive.
yeah, 93 is when this was published.
93, okay.
1993.
Yeah, thanks.
I was
Yeah.
off a year or two.
It's the
Many people
year I
didn't know.
graduated high school.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I thought it came out the year I graduated, but I was wrong. So, do you remember the first time you read this book, Peter? Did you read it when it first came out, or did you read it?
Yeah, I read it very early 90s and then in Dutch, but I read it then for the first time. So basically, my parents were I'm a member of one of those book clubs who sent you a guide and you could pick a book every quarter or
Yep.
something like that. That's how we got our books.
Nice.
I still owe a bunch of money to the science fiction book, fantasy book club from 35 years ago. I don't know if they'll ever see the money. I don't even know if they still exist. I remember picking this up from the new bookshelf when it came out because it was one of those early books that I remember waiting for as a teenager and early 20-something.
Yeah.
Because I turned 20 the year this came out. So it was definitely one that I was anticipating for a long time and then got it. I just don't remember it being as long as it apparently is because I've read some long books and this didn't seem like that long. Maybe it's just because it, as you said, it's a page turner. This one is way more of a page turner, I think, than the other two. I'm not saying they aren't, but there are periods where you're kind of slogging through the story along with the characters, and that can get a little oppressive at times for me. At least I found it.
I didn't experience that, to be honest with you, at all.
The one that gets me is when Peter or Simon first escapes from the hellhole, when Parides kills Morganes. You know, that whole passage, as I refer to it, you know, he's going underground, going to and then all to the woods by himself. It's just like,
okay, yeah. No,
might be because this is my 5th time reading the book. That might be part of it.
Well, I must confess also the storyline of Megoin and Eleoa. Is that how I pronounce it?
Ailer, yeah.
And so basically the Heron's theory story line in general so far.
Not working.
Well, not working. No, that's overstated. I'm basically a bit nitpicking here, but
okay.
What does it add to the whole story? It is a lot of learning about background. So it is the storytelling. It's setting the stage, but there's not that much happening. Like I said, there's a lot of background added to it. Just yet. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
But
it's a really good exposition source.
yeah,
We're getting a
exactly.
lot of good exposition,
Definitely.
and it's exposition that works. It feels natural. That's one thing I think Williams is great at. Is his expo dumps don't feel like dumps. They just it feels natural and it flows well with the story. When characters are telling other characters, especially characters like Simon, who don't know shit, you know, giving explanations to him. So that works really well for me.
Okay, yeah, yeah. In that sense, one thing I was wondering while reading is the Megawin and what was the old lady's name? That's something, by the way, that
Early?
reminded me. Diawin, the old
Yeah.
the old lady who tells the dream explainer. And
Oh, okay.
I was wondering, is that a warning against fanatics? Because, well, Megawin gets all hooked up on the gods and that does, well, takes
Yeah.
wild steps, let me put it that way.
Mountain climbing.
Yeah, exactly. Just go to the top of a mountain and let's see what happens, and then sits there for 3 days and then thinks she sees the gods, then drags her, well, basically what is left of the people she is with, out in the open. That's major risk taking.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
batshit insane. I mean, call it what
Yeah.
you want.
A
Yeah,
little bit of both,
exactly.
or a lot of both, maybe.
Yeah,
They're not
and
mutually exclusive.
That does
so
sort of
fair
lead.
enough, but then very focused on, oh, these are the gods. While everybody in the background knows, no, you have not seen the gods. It's the Shinti you have seen, but you're not aware of it. And then, well, then in the end, she get, of course, hit badly, and then she thinks she's in heaven. And again, that's a harsh punishment for what she did. But like I said, is that a sort of warning? Don't go too far in the storyline. Sort of, I was
Could
wondering.
be.
And it also it made me think of you, Glenn, because you said, well, elderly ladies play an important part in this, well, whole book, and Diawin is again one of those
Another,
elderly
yeah.
ladies
Right.
who tries to explain and, well, encourage Megawin in what she does. So there was only only the Queen Dowager stayed behind in the caves, if I'm correctly.
Yeah.
And, well, basically they were saved by the Bell, by the Shinti as a people. So that was okay, good ending. But
Yeah.
what is the story? Why am I reading this? This was one of the things I was wondering.
I to be honest, I don't remember what happens with her in the back half of this book.
True.
And that's what it all boils down to. I know
Yeah.
that she's got it. There's a purpose to it. You know, because
You got to see
Ted
some
Williams
sort of
doesn't
result.
waste any space. Yeah, he doesn't waste space with his stories. Not that I've ever noticed.
True.
And so, yeah, there's a reason for it, and we'll have to wait until 3 weeks from now to discuss that once we've finished this book.
You know what? That segues good to my question, which is you guys who have read this book before, was there anything in your first reading that sort of stood out in your mind? And did it look different on this reread?
For me, one thing that really stood out always was the puppy love crush that Simon has on both Adidu and Miriam.
Mhm.
You know, the one's more of a puppy dog crush, lost, but the other one, he's falling in love with Miriam. But
Clearly.
those really stood out, and you know, it made a lot more sense to me when I read this the first time, because I still was, for the most part, an adolescent boy, you know, 19, 20 years old. So you're not far from being an adolescent. You're not quite an adult yet physically. So I was very much like Simon, you know, in the way he would feel about the women. So I could totally understand that. Now I look at it, I'm just like, I want to steal a line from Game of Thrones and just tell you, sweet summer child. You know, it's just he's so naive about life, and just he's only 6. He's not even 16 yet.
No.
Well, I mean, age has a lot to do with that. I think we all look back at our teenage selves and wince and cringe.
Oh,
If you
Yeah,
don't,
definitely.
then I'm worried about how you matured as an adult.
yeah. Right.
So
Or I'm worried about how in square in the box you were, as a teen.
either way, I'm
That's
worried.
almost as bad. Yeah. How about you, Peter? What are your memories?
Yeah, I must surprise that I remember the general storyline, but the so many details and the fight. I knew they were doing something with the ice, but I was in my mind that was they did it instantly. They had that fight, which is gruesome, and again also for Simon a moment where he well basically learns the harshness of war, and he's in the middle of it, and he stands admirably well, and that's surprising because you just said it. He's a 50-year-old boy, so that's quite a feat that he plays off there. That Aditu came to the Stone of Leaving. That was also something I definitely did not remember. And also one thing I completely forgot was the trolls arriving also there before the fight to initially the Shinty city and then to New Cadrinset. How do you pronounce it? Whatever.
Catherine said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
And yeah, that's a also things that the storyline from Binnevik and Siskwi, the their growing bond between those two is something I definitely did not remember. And so yeah, there was a lot, and my uh, confusion is also I remember it in the wrong order.
Uh, did anybody else, when the trolls showed up to help fight, go Taishar Kanuk, you know, because that popped into my head. Just like when we were doing Rift War, Taishar Saranwani came to my head. Sarani showed up to fight. That was just awesome. It reminds me, it's like that moment in Lord of the Rings when the elves show up at Helm's Deep in the movies, or when the Rangers show up at Helm's Deep in the book.
Right.
It's a very similar, feeling that I had to that.
Yeah, that's true.
I love the trolls. I love the trolls in this series. They are just, they're something else. They're like,
I think I tie shard when they sort of stayed up all night dancing and drinking and partying, because you knew a battle was coming, and just that
yeah,
sort of brief moment of being able to be human beings or trolls, or to feel those emotions and forget about war and everything that was going on for a little bit. Um, yeah, I love that moment. Just that
who
break.
would you guys say your favorite character is in this book? I know we've been all over the place with the previous two books, but do you have a favorite character different in this one?
So far, Josha is still one of my, right up there.
Joshua?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Joshua, Josha, it's all the same.
I get it. I get it. Real time stuck in the head. It's hard not to get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you're Joshua. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, I'm still very fond of Iskrimur. On one thing I noticed in this book, in the first two books, he clearly was the sort of the comic relief a lot of times, and that is slowly but very clearly disappearing, and he becoming more and more one of Yosha's war leaders. And
Yeah.
he's part of the council, of course, because he is in the story a major noble. So he is a experienced soldier, so that's understandable. But that comes more and more to the front, so that's good. And I must say that the storyline of those three Norns who came to New Scarlet to kill Cabarrus, that was also something I thought by myself, oh, that's actually well done. And
Yeah.
so in terms of characters, I notice I still stay a bit away from the Simon and Miriamella, because I think that's an age thing. I noticed I like the characters around them, and I know those two are very major ones. Binabik, of course, stays interesting, but the people around them are actually this round much more interesting for me than just one character.
Yeah. I still absolutely completely love Benedict as a character.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Benedict is hard not to love. Um, I'm still, like last book, really, really fond of Tiamat. He's hard not to enjoy for me. But the one that I just really find myself loving reading or listening to scenes with is, for this book, has been Cadric with this book.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I like Cadric as a person, but as a character, he's a fascinating, just detailed, deep character that's got so many flaws, but has so much good for him at the same time. It's just seeing such a conflicted character. And I'll admit, even though I had read this book before, when they all went into the Gant nest and then come out and he was gone, I was convinced he was gone, that he had taken off and left them behind, until he shows back up with the fire flinging stuff. I was like, okay, I remember this now. But yeah, I just really enjoyed reading and listening to Cadric. I mean, he's not necessarily a good person, but he's a very flawed character that's just fascinating.
I just when it comes to Joshua, I love seeing the scenes where like he's up all night worrying, about, is it better to become so strong that your enemies can't touch you, but at the same time, what does that do to you and your people as a result? And he's sort of struggling with that, and he realizes, it had been mentioned to him before, these are the type of questions any good ruler should be asking themselves. They should be staying up late, losing sleep over these kind of thoughts. And just seeing him grapple with that sort of thing, and knowing he has a child coming and trying to sort of grapple with the idea that someday I may have to send this child into battle in my name. What does that mean for me, A, as a leader, B, as a father? I mean, that kind of struggle stuff hits with me, but maybe it's because I'm a dad and I'm a lot older than you guys were when you first read it. But I really identify with that sort of struggle. So
that makes a lot of sense. Sense. Ted Williams is really good at raising a lot of moral and ethical questions with these books. There was one that kind of just, it's here towards the end of this first half of the book, where I don't remember, it was two people were talking. One of them was Joshua, and they were talking about Father Stranger had said, said like the night before, that it's just as bad to try to buy God's favor by doing good deeds as it is to do evil deeds. And I'm just like, whoa. It's like, and then they followed up like, you do the good deeds for the good deeds' sake itself. And I'm like, yeah, but then you're really getting to the heart of what person's motivation for what they're doing is, and it's, I don't know. It was something that just made me pause the tape, the audiobook tape. Tells you how old I am. Jeepers. I literally have listened to a book on tape. The very first book on tape I ever listened to was The Shadow Rising. And I thought it was an interesting question. It had me thinking for a while there. And it's not the only time that Ted Williams has done that with these books.
What things had you forgotten about that sort of pleasantly surprised you on this reread?
The Good Wolf story was oh yeah, the first with the cat, and I'm still sort of thinking, where are we going with this? Because he clearly walks into, well, a Norn opening, and he loses his way, and I'm pretty convinced that Piratus is very much aware that he's walking around, and when he's in the well, is it still called the smithy downstairs when he's there with the king?
Foundry.
The
The
foundry,
foundry.
thank you. Yeah, and I'm pretty convinced that Piratus is aware that he's standing above the well, the oven or the melt where they melt the iron.
Yeah.
So the king is seeing something, but not aware. He's seeing movement, but he's not aware it's Gutwolf. And so there, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't remember also not how it continues in the next book. So that's a thing I was completely forgotten. So that was
Yeah,
interesting.
I'd forgotten all about Gutwolf's storyline. And I mean, just like last book, I had forgotten about Rachel, her storyline, until I read last book and then realized, oh yeah, she's going to be having more storyline in this one. I
Right.
just didn't remember what it is.
You did mention
But
that.
I'm like,
So.
yeah, I mean, I don't remember what all she's got in store for her. I do remember that cat is important.
I love the fact that it's a cat that sort of tethers them to reality,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
for now.
Mhm.
Can't say it's going to stick, but that sort of human moment of identifying with a smaller, more vulnerable creature. I just love
Yeah.
that because I mean I have pets, I have cats, so I get it. There are moments where something will happen and I'm feeling really angry and upset, and my cat will come lay down on my lap. And next thing I
And
know,
it
I'm
makes
just
it,
stroking the cat and I've forgotten all about why I was even angry to start with. So I
yeah.
can identify with that, and I loved that little detail. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I love that part. It wasn't a surprise to me because I've never read it, obviously, but
Right.
it was still a really awesome moment for me to go, oh, okay, I get that. I completely get that.
Bill, you had said that being a father with a couple of boys really changed your way affected the way you look at Joshua and
Yeah.
his storyline. Are there any other ways that you think your life experience up to this point has seriously colored how you would read this book, say, opposed to if you'd read it 20 years ago?
Yeah, honestly, if I would have read this when it first came out, I was at an age where I had had my heart broken. I didn't really know what a relationship was supposed to look like or feel like. Um,
Right.
Now I have a complete understanding of what a healthy relationship is and the difference between a crush and being in actual love. So yeah, I definitely would have read this book, and I think I would have focused more on Simon as the titular hero, um,
Yeah.
instead of sort of the catalyst that I see him as now. He's still a main character, don't get me wrong, and he does heroic things, but at the same time, I'm not just focusing on his story arc.
Right.
I'm looking at everybody's, and that's something I wouldn't have done probably as a teenager.
No, to Peter.
Yeah, I fully agree with Bill. It is when I read it first, I was busy with Simon and the story and the direct line, the direct storyline. And now I'm way more focused on the all the sidelines and all the things apart from the major storyline. And in that sense, I also noticed something which I don't think one of us mentioned it so far. Last time you told me about the let's say the grown-up women who play their part. And also another thing which you don't see that much is that we see a number of physically handicapped people, which you don't
Hmm.
see a lot.
Yeah.
So, of course,
Very
Joshua
true.
with his hand, and you will also get what is it, Freyocell, the major of New Garrett, and his who's losing a hand in the fight, and
Got
Inch in
Guthwolf is
Springard, missing eye.
Guthwolf is blind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Good Wolf is blind completely. So that is also something I
Yeah.
of course read it, but I didn't notice it. And now I was sort of, hey, suddenly I realized that's something you don't read a lot in other stories.
Yeah, you know, now that I think about it, you're 100% right. I didn't pick up on that either, but you're right. There are a lot more people who have physical disabilities
Yeah,
throughout this series than you usually see in fantasy.
yeah,
I'd even say mental disabilities of some sort. I mean,
fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Megwin is going insane.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
lost a
Well,
touch of
yeah,
sense of reality.
maybe. I mean, we don't know.
um,
Maybe she's
what's
spot
the name
on.
of the who was it that Elias had as his cupbearer, the guy with the bugged out eyes?
Kingfisk.
Yeah.
Thank you. He
Yeah,
had something
very
done
good
to him, but
example.
mentally he's lost. His mind is broken.
Yeah,
So you're seeing it there too.
yeah,
You know,
definitely.
his mind was broken.
Yeah,
Um,
in that
yeah,
sense, so that's something I sort of, hey, that's
that's a
a thing
good
I
pickup.
really picked up on.
Very good spot there, Peter.
What,
I hadn't connected it that way before.
yeah, I hadn't either.
That makes sense.
Was
No,
there
but
anything that sort of stood out in this book that sort of clashed with modern day society? For me, no. I think this book has aged really, really well. Um, there's nothing really blatant
I'm
or obvious.
trying to. I mean, maybe the fact that there's a several hundred-year-old civil woman hitting on a 15-year-old boy. You
yeah,
know, being a
Um,
little flirtatious. That might not sit over too well, but I mean,
okay.
that's just an age thing, and that's bound to happen when you got an immortal trying to look up with a mortal. There's usually going to be an age difference. You know,
Yeah,
it's the same problem people would have with Arwen and Aragorn. To be
yeah,
honest, she's
yeah,
like
but
10 times his age.
yeah, yeah. Was that really? Is that a discussion? I never picked up on that. But you're right. I think a number of especially female roles would have been fine-tuned. No, there
hmm.
are small things that you think by yourself, okay, but again, that's a bit nitpicking. But I think the female roles would, if it would have been written nowadays, the female roles
She
would
would
be
have more agency as Bill
exactly, yeah,
wanted.
she would have been
Yeah,
stronger.
Are you
I
happy
can
with her
see that.
level of agency in this book yet? Do you think she has more agency in this book than previously?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
taking, yeah, definitely, but
yeah.
it could have been stronger, I think.
Because there's another character I think lacked a lot of agency in the first two books. He did a lot of reaction instead of action. That's Simon. Simon didn't really get to make any of his own choices. Even when he was, he was basically running on instinct. He was first, escaped from the hayhole before Benedict rescued him. And
Mhm.
then after Benedict and Sludig lost him,
Mhm.
but most of the time decisions are being made for Simon.
I
So
would disagree. He has ways he could have gone. You know, he could have said, screw this and went back to the castle. I mean, he had agency to make that choice.
I'm not saying he's completely without agency. I just think he is still also lacking it as much. It might not be as lacking as she is, but I'd say they both are lacking it. Her probably more so.
Well, that brings up the question of free will, the same way it does in the Wheel of Time about Taviran. I mean, is it free will or is it the pattern forcing them to do things? And it's a very open question that depends on your viewpoint and your own set of moral code. So
There
I
is
think
a
any
standing
any good
prophecy
character
here.
is going to bring up that sort of, okay, is this his decision or is this the
Yeah.
situation forcing him into this decision?
Uh,
All
by
right.
the way, interesting you mentioned Wheel of Time because there is
I've
a
heard of that
chapter
series.
where Wheel of Time is then it is not the Wheel of Time, but the time turns like a wheel or something. That is in
Yeah,
it's mentioned at the end of a chapter and at the beginning of a chapter. Is it? Hold on, let
the
me.
cyclical nature of time, yeah, is
Yeah,
brought up.
exactly. Hold on. Oh, although time's wheel, he is calling it in chapter 15, top
Ah,
of chapter 15. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's any influence going either way on this particular book towards Jordan, or the other way, but it is quite feasible that by the time he wrote that line, he'd read Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Tad Williams wrote that line. He'd read Wheel of Time because this came out 2 years after the first two books. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Wheel of Time early 90s also?
91.
Yeah,
First
91
91.
was
Okay.
Eye of the
I
World.
think Eye of the World came out in like February or March or something like that. And then that fall, Great Hunt came out.
Okay.
That was when I picked it up and read it.
If this book is from 91, so you see a sort of connection there. Suddenly
this is 93.
arising. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's interesting to see.
What, if any, are some themes that stood out to you on this reading and this book, this first half of the book? It's chock full of themes.
Yeah, I mean, I think every character sort of has its own theme, at least, tangentially. Responsibility is a big one.
Yeah.
Leadership.
From him trying to do the responsible thing as a leader, to Simon sort of accepting the responsibility of being a knight. Pretty much every character, goes through a point where even Cadrak sort of has that moment where, he takes responsibility for, what he did with the book in his drunken state. So I definitely think responsibility is a big one.
Yeah, and I would call for a lot, maybe not all, but persistence is something that consistently comes back with all characters, whether it is the main characters or somebody like Jeremiah Cadrak. Again, he persists. He stays there, although we all had the idea, he will run. And yet he persists. Joshua persists with a fight against his brother and against an army as a whole, which is 3 times as big or something like that is suggested. And against all odds, they beat it. So that is also something that comes consistently back in this part.
I'd say, to me, it almost seems like it's the dominant theme in this trilogy, and that's friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship is just layer upon layer upon layer of friendship. From, Simon, the Scullion boy, is friends with Prince Joshua at this point, I mean, he's become friends with so many different people. The friendship between him and Benedict is a great story to watch. The developing friendship between Benedict and Sludig, I really enjoy. I'm kind of partial to Sludig. I've always liked the character, and his friendship with Benedict just kind of warms my heart. It makes me happy to see, because they were from sides that would have hated each other. That did hate each other. You've also got, obviously war is a theme in there. Life and death, you can't get away from that with the war. Cadrak's storyline, and I guess maybe not Chimera's, but Cadrak at least is a redemption storyline. I don't remember why Chimera's was mentally not with it for so long. I don't remember what happened. So, but something happened. We'll find that out. But suffering is there. But yeah, the big one for me, I think, is friendship. Just everybody you look at has a friendship going on of some sort, just about.
And for the record, Glenn, that is Sir Simon, no longer the kitchen boy. He is a knight. Put some respect on his name, sir.
Okay, Sir Simon Salem.
Okay,
get his name right. Yeah. Former Scullion boy.
No, but he in that sense he earned also. He earned. He grows and he takes. Well, he does actions which are, deserve that he will be taken serious, despite his very young age. Still, I think somewhere halfway the book he says he's still not
He's not
16.
even
They
16
celebrate their
yet.
birthday together with Amelia at a easy moment where he wants to give her the white arrow, which again shows him the immaturity because he doesn't understand the weight of that arrow
Yeah, the significance of
in emotional sense towards from Jariki to him. But okay, so that there is room to move, of a room to grow. Sorry.
He's still a
But
mooncalf. He
in
might
that
be a
sense,
knight now, but he is still a mooncalf.
yeah, he's still
he's getting
uh,
there.
definitely. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
He will.
and seeing the battle sort of harden him a little bit, I think it's
Well,
a
it
good
makes
thing.
yeah.
Watching that first battle, yeah, and then being in one himself, and I can't say killing his first person, but the first time he deliberately killed someone.
Yep.
Because the guy he killed when he saved Jariki, he wasn't trying to kill that guy.
Right.
You know, this time though, he thrust the sword into the guy's neck until he held his blade still.
Yeah,
and just like
yeah, the
he almost
willful
puked.
act of taking someone else's life, and that should be a big deal. You should
And it
feel the weight
was.
of that moment. So
yeah, but he also loses there. Is innocence the word I'm looking for? In that sort of
Yeah,
at the end of the day, he totally doesn't care anymore for becoming a knight and being a knight. He just thinks it's horrible. It's a nightmare in every respect of that word. Because he sees also the description of losing one of the trolls, which he knew from his travels, who is really nailed to the wall by one of the with a spear by one. Is it a Erken guard or is it one of the
yeah,
Trinsinger
it was an
men?
American guy.
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I think it was an American guy. It could have been a
Yeah.
Thryving's man, but I think it was an
Yeah, but
American guy.
also the description, by the way, that to the guard who kills the troll, that he doesn't the troll is clearly dead, but he keeps stabbing in. The pointlessness of that is also it adds to what Simon learns, I think.
yeah, the mental fog of war. That
Absolutely.
Were you at all surprised that Simon didn't end up, when he first got made apprentice to Dr. Morgani's, did you think he was going to end up being a wizard, source spellcaster, or is this the direction you expected?
No, definitely not. This was not what I was, and I guess that's a long time ago, but you were expecting he will be something of a wizard and he will learn the art but he has to come from far, because at the end of this book we still see he can't write properly, so he's still again learning, and he wants to hear stories, not history. So, and he has to especially in the beginning of the book with Morganus, he has to learn a lot, but he doesn't want to. He wants to be entertained, and that he now learns also the limitations of how far he is.
yeah, honestly, I thought we were going to go sort of like magician.
Yeah.
He was going to go into the whole magic thing and end up being, this uber powerful spellcaster, and then watching how we went from there to, him getting knighted and his first battle is just, not the way I thought it would go, but so expertly done that I'm not upset, disappointed, or anything, because it is so beautifully written. Again, the prose I cannot go into enough. His prose is magnificent. One of my favorites.
I still say it's the best, most beautifully written fantasy series trilogy I've ever read. There are some other great
100% agree
out there with amazing prose, but I don't think it compares to this series.
I mean,
so I am.
We were talking earlier. We were talking earlier, and I was like, honestly, I enjoy this more than I enjoyed Tolkien. So,
a
lot of people have issues with Tolkien's prose. Yeah, Tolkien's prose is not. If we were discussing those books on this show, that would be, one of the ones that, one of the complaints, that doesn't hold up is the prose and the style of writing of Lord of the Rings does not hold up to today's
And
audience.
also the I must confess for Lord of the Rings, if we were getting sidetracked a bit, the first 100 pages are, oh man, those are terrible. It just drags
They're not great.
on and on and on. But then,
Talk about exposition dump.
yeah, it's one message true, and I think you need it in the end. But I must have confessed that there were many times that I thought by myself in the first chapters, oh, I'm gonna so stop this because I never get through this.
I
But
am
then, unfortunately, it picked
I
up.
am 100% aware that without Tolkien, there would be, none of this. The series wouldn't
Very little.
exist. I think on the same hand, if this series didn't exist, we wouldn't have A Song of Ice and Fire. We probably
King
Wheel
Killer
of Time,
Chronicles.
King Killer
I think Wheel of
Chronicles.
Time we would have gotten. It would have been a little bit different. I think I'll agree that there are some influences on Jordan, towards Jordan. I would presume, but
I see quite a
it's
few.
mostly A Song of Ice and Fire and King Killer Chronicles that probably wouldn't have been written if it wasn't for this trilogy.
I just don't think
Because
anything of modern fantasy would be the same if it wasn't for this trilogy. The sort of
no,
successfully merge the prose he has written with the style of a more realistic modern fantasy. This really bridged that gap.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of mad at myself that I didn't even know anything about this series until recently. So, yeah, I want to go back in time and sort of kick the crap out of teenage me going, no, read that book.
and make sure everybody else reads it.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of which, would you recommend this to what age groups do you think? All ages? Because for me, it's all ages.
16 and up.
Yeah, I would say,
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to read it to a 3-year-old, but
yeah, exactly.
If it's a really smart preteen or early teen, with
Yeah,
a really good vocabulary and emotionally mature for their age, then I'd say yeah.
Yeah.
The prose, well, beautiful. I also do think some people would have a hard time with some of the words. I mean, it's not like reading Stephen R. Donaldson, where like every page you have to stop and look the word up in the dictionary. But it's not the easiest of all reads, especially the names. So
yeah,
I would.
you can just sort of make up your own names in your head and say that's how it sounds to me. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I did until we got the pronunciation guide from Pieter. So now I'm going through going, hey, how do I say that?
Speaking of that, I have told the audience last time we were on, I said that I believe the apostrophe in city writing was a glottal stop, like Ahmed. It's not. What is something is the A with the little caret over it. That is a click sound, like in the Zosa. I can't say it. Most people who don't grow up speaking click languages can do it, so can't do it. So, but yeah, it's a click sound, and they say don't try it unless you're city. So
okay.
I like to admit when I was wrong on something that I had said on camera before. So when I discover I'm wrong, I'll point it out.
Oh, don't worry. I'll point out every time I know you're wrong.
I appreciate that. Anybody else have anything else they wanted to bring up in this about this book?
Really anxious to get to part 2. Been a struggle not to continue on. I wanted to talk about this first. So now that we are wrapping this up, I'm gonna go listen to part 2.
Sounds like a good idea. Peter, thank you for joining us. Do you have anything going on that you want to bring up?
No, not at the moment. Yeah, heading for part 2 of this book, and hopefully I've forgotten all of it, so then it's new again.
Gotcha. Well, thank you guys at home for watching. Please come back in 3 weeks to check out our conclusion to Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Please leave us a like, a subscribe, and some comments. And don't forget to be awesome.
See ya.
Bye.